今天要为大家带来一个很奇妙的故事。当时候满族渐被忘记的古老预言，就忽然在我们眼前打开。一个来自无法用肉眼看见的领域，带着至高神的谕旨，开始发出灵魂的呼唤。在平凡的人、平凡的生活中，点燃了莫名炽热的火焰。回家，回家，飞回命定中的家。于是那块土地开始复苏回应，于是数不清的故事开始交织烙印。听完这些故事，或许你会明白，应许地的呼唤是那位爱情如死之坚强，记恨如阴间之残忍，所发的电光是火焰的电光，是耶和华的烈焰所发出的。
We are headed to Gedi today, but not the national park. We're going to the kibbutz, Kibbutz Gedi.
I'm excited.
We are meeting with a very special woman named Daniela Cohen. Originally from the US, she's lived here with her husband Yehuda for over 40 years. They host private tours for visitors from all over the world. She will be our guide today.
You know, some kibbutzim have cows, some have horses, some have chickens or turkeys, some have computer systems. We're known as the Garden Kibbutz. This is probably the most beautiful kibbutz in Israel.
As she showed us around, she shared the history of the kibbutz. It was first established in the valley below during the 1950s, before moving to its current location in 1960.
This is 1960 now. This is what it looked like. No trees, no flowers.
Wow.
Nobody has ever lived on this plateau before us, ever. It was all rocky, and they came in an old truck, and they didn't have a refrigerator, no ovens,
no.
They had no washing machines, and they came.
So did Gedi, the kibbutz, move up from there because of the flash floods?
Not because of the floods at all, because we were going to get married, and we were going to have children, and we had no protection there at all. Children were our most important product. Everything went around their lives, but they didn't sleep with us. They slept in what is called children's houses. Why? Because in the north of our country, the kibbutzim were raided all the time.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
People were killed, children were killed. There is no limit to the amount of people who hate us. So this is the way we protected our children. But I'm a fighter. As I said, we must bring our children home. Everywhere in the world, children sleep with their parents. Animals sleep with their family. We cannot separate them. Well, people began to change, and in 1972, we brought our children home to sleep. In the beginning, we all wore the same clothes, ate the same food, and the kibbutz supported us. Everything was okay. I'm a baby nurse. I took care of babies. What we had before was communism, as it was supposed to be. Well, let's see. About 20 years ago, the people on the kibbutz said the world is changing. We have to change too. We have to go to privatization.
We were then introduced to the plants. There are hundreds of them from all over the world, from the familiar to the beautiful and to the oddly unique. Standing here, it's not only hard to believe we're surrounded by desert, but we're also very close to the Dead Sea.
This tree was planted in 1980. Everything that grows here grows bigger and better, sweeter and stronger than any other place in all of Israel. There are 27 minerals in the Dead Sea, and they're in our land. And because we're in the lowest place in the world, we have more oxygen than any other place in the world. Also, in our earth, there is something called havar. Havar is sort of like clay or like flour. If you take a bowl of flour and put water on top of it, the water goes down very, very slowly. So it is with our earth. The water is absorbed very slowly. So even though it's summer here between May and October, and the temperature is between 40 and 50 degrees centigrade, burning hot, still underneath the ground there is moisture in the plants, and so they don't die. Many of them are burned on the outside, but still the water keeps the roots alive, and when the temperature changes, they come back again. But also, our sun is different than other places in Israel. Why? If you go to Eilat, to the Red Sea, or if you go to the Mediterranean Sea in Tel Aviv, if you lie out in the sun for half an hour, you will be red like a tomato.
Yes.
But here, you can lie out in the sun 8 hours a day for 3 weeks. You'll get very brown, but you won't burn, because the ultraviolet rays of the sun that are so dangerous for your health hardly reach us because we are so low down. There is something called brome that evaporates from the Dead Sea. This brome or bromide is used in the making of tranquilizers. You're breathing it in now. It's very, very good for you. It makes you relax. And we love everybody. It makes you sleep well. Life is good.
While we were pretty relaxed, I can't say the same for these dogs.
Hello.
Kibbutz Ein Gedi has this special distinction of being the only botanical garden in the entire world with people actually living in it. Daniela herself loves to garden and knows each one of these plants by name, purpose, and history.
This tree comes from East Africa. This is the first place in Israel that it was brought to. This is my favorite tree out of 850, and this is the youngest of the baobab trees. It was planted in 1980. There was a man on the kibbutz when we started to build up here that said he wanted to have a baobab tree that began here at En Gedi. So he took a branch from another tree and planted it. Everybody laughed at him. They said it would never grow like that. It's so difficult to start it like that. But he was determined. He planted it for 6 years, nothing happened. All of a sudden from that one branch came another. And he danced around the tree and he was so excited. And it grew to be very, very nice for about 8 years. You see, in the winter we have winds sometimes that are so strong they can pick a tree up out of the ground. And so it was that night that the tree was picked up out of the ground and it lay on the ground.
Oh no.
My husband is in charge of the date plantation for 50 years, and he goes to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. He saw the tree lying on the ground. He put chains around it and said, I'm going to take it away before everybody wakes up and is sad when they see it being taken away. Just then, the man who planted it came along. He said, bring it back right away, plant it down again. We'll put the rocks around it to hold it down. And they did. And it continued to grow. Why I love this tree so much, I think it's like the story of Israel. So many wars, so many terrible things have happened to us. And yet, look what we have done.
The tour then took us to Daniela's own backyard, where we were delighted by all of her artistic creations.
This is what I do in the afternoon. I work a lot in the garden. You can try our dates. I put them out for you.
Her husband Yehuda is her favorite muse.
This is the family. This is King David, And this was his wife. And my husband. One day he brought flowers to me, and it was so beautiful that I had to make them in clay. He's so good. I look at him when he's sleeping sometimes, and I can't believe that he's my husband. We're married for 53 years.
As we enjoyed the sweet and juicy dates grown by Yehuda himself, she gave us a more personal look into her own story.
So here are our 8 children.
Wow.
And as you can see, we have different colors and different kinds. She was born in Korea.
Wow.
Oh.
Yes, her mother is Korean. And my son here is the father of 2 of them. She and her brother here. And as my husband is a Yemenite, some of my children have brown skin.
Wow.
But they all grew up here. I came when the kibbutz up here was 8 years old.
When she was a young woman in America, Daniela volunteered to help raise money to send to Israel. One day, as she was bringing donations to the Israel embassy, a chance encounter changed her life.
There were people standing in line, men, young men, who wanted to come back. They were Israelis who wanted to fight in the war. And one of them yelled out to me, "What are you doing here, Daniela? You're a Zionist. You believe you should live in Israel. But why are you here?" So I went home to my mother and father and I said, "I can't live here anymore. I have to go back." And so with that, I came back. But it's not easy. There is a price to pay. I broke my mother's heart.
She took us to a quiet memorial spot at the edge of the gardens, where we could see the hills where David hid from King Saul, the ruins of an ancient Jewish synagogue from 1600 years ago, and the desert valley where the kibbutz itself began. We were once again reminded of that price that so many paid to return and be here in this land.
There was a family who had 4 sons. Each one was so special. The oldest one was an artist, and when he went to the army, he became an officer. He led his men into Lebanon when the war began in 1982. He walked towards a house that had a white flag on it. His hands were in the air and he had no rifle. And they shot him through the heart and killed him. And his brother, well, I told you the children don't listen too much in Israel. His brother finished the army. He ran races all over the world and he always won because he ran like the wind. My husband said, "You mustn't take our tractor that goes high up in the air to the tallest trees because the top part is very heavy. It can fall over." One day my husband wasn't working in the date plantation, and Tomer, the boy, took the tractor and he saw a tree that had so many dates on it, maybe 400 kilos. He leaned it up against the tree because he wanted to make a surprise for my husband. He made a surprise. The tractor fell and Tomer died. And the mother and father made this corner in the name of the sons.
In this hot, dry wilderness, through blood, sweat, and tears, life came back, as the Bible said it would. But lives were lost as well. So it makes Daniela's stories and all the lush greenery around us even more poignant. As our tour came to a conclusion, she left us with a moving reminder.
I did many, many tours with Chinese people, and I know that they didn't have any religion, the people that I did the tours with. Sometimes we talked about it and sometimes not. Well, I would stand them here towards the end of the tour, and I would say to them, "I want you to look here. I want you to see what 80 young people did who knew nothing about agriculture.
Yeah.
Do you really think that we could have done all this by ourselves with no help from anyone or anything in the middle of one of the hottest deserts? And nobody would say anything. They were all very, very quiet. But at least I was able to give them the thought, there must be something more than us. There must be. Otherwise, we could never have done this.
That's right.
Never.
That's right.
Never.
We had spent the afternoon walking in prophecy fulfilled, in God's word found faithful, with a wonderful guide who had seen it all firsthand. She and all the others at the time hadn't known the beauty that would be here someday, but they had been determined and they persevered against all odds. And yes, they did not do it alone.
以色列山啊，你必发枝条，为我的民以色列结果子，因为他们快要来到。看啊，我是帮助你的，也必向你转意，使你得以耕种。我必从各国收取你们，从列邦聚集你们，引导你们归回本地。我也要赐给你们一个新心，将心灵放在你们里面，又从你们的肉体中除掉实心，赐给你们肉心。我必将我的灵放在你们里面，使你们顺从我的律例，谨守遵行我的典章。我必使树木多结果子，田地多出土产，好叫你们不再因饥荒受外邦人的讥笑。主耶和华如此说：我洁净你们，使你们脱离一切罪孽的日子，必使城邑有人居住，荒场再被建造。过路的人虽看为荒废之地，现今这荒废之地仍得耕种。他们必说：这先前为荒废之地，现在诚如伊甸园。这荒废凄凉毁坏的城邑，现在坚固有人居住。那时，在你们四围其余的外邦人必知道，我耶和华修造那毁坏之处，培植那荒废之地。我耶和华说过，也必成就。阿们，阿们。